Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. Shortly, I will be joined by Claire from Snout About Kerry to talk all things rescue dogs. We're really looking forward to having this chat, and we know that lots of our regular viewers are as well. We set up this Tuesday Talk format because we know that there's so much knowledge out there in the community, and we'd love to share it and build that community further. Claire should be joining the chat any second now. And like magic, we see Claire popping up on the screen. Thank you very much for joining me, Claire. How are you doing this evening?
Doing good. Can you hear me?
Can indeed. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can. I was wondering how this is all going to work. Technology is not my forte.
It's okay. Usually Instagram allows people to do things that it likes. So it likes people going on live and sharing lovely stories and experience. So this is something they try to make easy for us most of the time. So would you do us the pleasure of introducing yourself, please?
So I am Claire Quinlan. I'm a certified dog behaviour consultant and a certified dog trainer. I joined up with Snout About Cork, who has been on. Catherine has graced your fabulous podcast a couple of times and given some gorgeous information. So I'm the Kerry counterpart, and so is Susie, of course. You've had us all now.
Exactly. Very good. Love that introduction, and everyone as well is confirming down in the comments that they can see both of us in here as well. So we're doing well. Very good. And from my side, just a quick introduction in case anyone hasn't popped on before. I'm Killian from Ruby Reese. We are a young Irish brand based in Cork, and you can check out our website after this format at ruby-reese.com. So we're talking about rescue dogs tonight. Super important topic. Can't believe we haven't covered it so far. So I'm delighted that you've been nice enough to cover it with me. We'll try to scratch the surface, but maybe let's start with, are there any misconceptions to do with rescue dogs? And maybe particularly around the ideas of behavior and adaptability to a new home.
I think there are probably in both directions, maybe. A misconception that a rescue dog is going to always come with a whole heap of problems and is going to take a huge amount of work and is going to be much more challenging than, we'll say, buying a puppy from, Dundee or wherever that a lot of puppies have come from, unfortunately, in the last couple of years. So there's one misconception that every rescue dog comes with a huge myriad of trauma and problems, and that's the reason behind some of the behaviors that we're seeing. And then from the other side, I guess there is also, a misconception of that you can just take a rescue dog into your home and with all the love, you'll somehow manage to heal it just by deeply loving it and minding it and putting cotton wool around it and making sure that nothing bad ever happens to it again. But I suppose our dogs do come with a lot of learning already, our rescue dogs, and a lot of taking one in initially is actually stepping back and figuring out who they are and letting their behavior and their actions actually tell us who they are. Us kind of thinking that we can do A, B, and C, and we're going to have the perfect dog. But actually, I think one of the best things that you can do when you take a rescue dog in initially is actually just step back and figure out who you now have living with you. And it's a gorgeous journey to go on as well.
Okay, brilliant. I suppose in general, regardless of whether a dog is a rescue or not, it's worthwhile treating them as an individual and trying to listen to that specific dog's needs. So I suppose, would that also maybe link into one of the benefits of adopting a dog from a rescue centre? The dog potentially being slightly older, people being able to give some commentary as to how they react with other dogs, react with other family members. What do you think of maybe some of the benefits of adopting a rescue?
Oh, there are so many. But like any dog, I suppose where we struggle with rescue and with puppies is that we do our little bit of research, and we kind of say, you know, maybe this is the type of dog that we'd like for our life. But then sometimes we go into a rescue centre, or we see a dog online and the little face takes us, and all of that good research that we've done and all of those good ideas of getting the right dog to match our lifestyle go out the window because we've seen this gorgeous little face. So one of, I suppose, the benefits of getting a rescue dog is that, especially if you go through a rescue centre that use foster homes, I find that is so beneficial, because they're able to give you all this incredible information because they've done the hard yards. They have the experience of how to take a dog into their home, how to help them feel comfortable in those first couple of days, and how to get the best information out of that dog, and be able to tell the prospective families so much incredible information. Because, you know, when we take on an older dog, they pretty much are what they say on the tin at that age. So when we take on a younger pup, there might have been a lot of things happen even in the mother, with the mother, will say, while she was pregnant, or in the early time when the puppy was very young. All this learning and all these epigenetics and genetic, I suppose, parts to the little puppy that you've brought in, and they'll all develop as the puppy grows. But actually, when we take in a rescue dog, especially if we've gotten information from a foster home, we really are getting information that we can kind of use to go forwards with. Now, we do step back, but we have information of maybe, you know, this particular dog seems to be fine with big dogs, but actually is a little bit scared of little dogs, or seems to be a little bit worried about men in high-vis jackets or women with shopping bags. You know, so we have that lovely information there, and that's something that we can either ideally initially avoid and then start to work on as time goes forward. So it's so beneficial to take in an older dog, because they're not having to go through the adolescence, or that kind of funny little puppy phase where they're doing lots of puppy biting, and the adolescence phase where their hormones are going up and down and all over the place. So if you're taking in an older and adult dog, the settling in process after that initial period, if you can kind of get that bit right, really is just can be amazingly easy at times.
Absolutely, and I suppose like it's great to be able to kind of just have to hone in on certain areas. Like we all have our own quirks, human, dog, or whatever. So I suppose there's always going to be some area or the other that we're going to want to work on. So I suppose it just makes it that bit easier that they're already highlighted. Whereas with the puppy, like you say, it's kind of everything. From learning how to walk to down to all the behavioral stuff.
Absolutely.
And then the then selecting a rescue, you know, that aligns with your lifestyle is probably important as well, because I suppose we all do have different lifestyles, and it may or may not suit a dog breed. So what are your thoughts on fit, I suppose?
On the fit. So I suppose, first of all, one of the biggest things that I would always encourage somebody going for a rescue dog to make sure that's in place is an enclosed back garden. And I suppose during the COVID period, when a lot of people were looking for dogs from rescues, and some were being refused, an enclosed back garden is so vital, first of all, because in that initial time that a dog is coming into your home, they haven't a clue who you are either. And they may have some kind of, I suppose, early learning, or learning from before they ended up in the pound or the rescue centre, that maybe, you know, if a human moves really quickly towards you, it generally means something bad for them. Or, you know, they're trying to figure you out and figure out what you appearing in their life now means. If they have to be attached to a lead all the time, it means they have to be incredibly close to you. They're either in the house, in the four walls, or they're on a lead attached to you outside. What is absolutely vital is that you have an enclosed back garden of some description, or an enclosed space where that dog can be off lead and kind of observe you from afar, and use their nose and use some of their more innate behaviors, rather than kind of just having to observe and worry about you from kind of an enclosed space. So that's the first thing. Before you get a rescue at all, I would say that is absolutely vital. And it's a reason that a lot of families unfortunately get turned down, because they don't have that enclosed outdoor space. And also in the first couple of days, a dog is much more likely to and I suppose the family that takes them in, we don't know their quirks yet. We don't know what really frightens them. So even a car backfiring out the front, or an engine starting, or kind of a quick noise can cause a dog to just absolutely bolt. So if we don't have that enclosed garden space, and we're not expecting that to happen, a lead can pull through a hand, or so that's the first little bit. I think that's vital, because without that, very often the fit just doesn't work.
Could I drill down on that one there? So you mentioned as well another enclosed space. So might an option be for some people, some rescues, be potentially something like an enclosed dog run that's in the garden, that's maybe, for example, someone that has a huge country garden that might be a huge problem to enclose entirely, to say, listen, we've got this section that we could turn into a dog run that's quite close to the house, or is attached to the house. Would that be something that could be helpful, at least in this situation?
Absolutely, definitely. I suppose there's still that little part as well, where the dog has to get from the house into that dog run. And just in the first couple of days, that can be a little bit problematic, because obviously we're dealing with the dog who maybe hasn't been inside, or definitely hasn't been inside your house before. So you might be struggling a little bit with toilet training. So we'll be going out quite frequently, and especially in terrible weather, to put a lead on a dog and to walk them out to the dog run. So it's to consider all of those things. Now, if the dog run is big enough, and the dog can kind of, I suppose, fulfill some of their more natural type behaviors inside in that space, then it can be a potential backup for your enclosed outdoor space, definitely. But I suppose some of the smaller runs, especially if you have a larger dog or a herding breed, they can actually feel quite confined inside in a run area, and it can build up a little bit of frustration. So is it the ideal? No. For certain dogs, it can work quite nicely. But I suppose that's where you really want to communicate with your rescue, ideally, if you're going through the rescue, because they'll be able to give you that information.
I was kind of thinking, if somebody was listening in the situation, said that they, that I definitely don't have whatever's needed to enclose my 5-acre garden, whatever, then that could potentially be something that could be brought up, rather than
absolutely. And it's amazing, when I go out to a lot of homes, there's always a portion of the garden that actually you can enclose. And for some dogs, it's just that physical barrier. Some dogs, unfortunately, need 8-foot fencing with almost coyote rollers on the top, because they can climb anything. But for some of the smaller breeds, even as well, just even something like extended chicken wire, or there's an area that you can maybe enclose off, even for that period of time, even if it's that first 6 months, that first year, until the dog is much more comfortable in the space. That something like that, there's always something that you can do if you can look at a home, and calling somebody in, a professional, can sometimes help you decide maybe where the best area is to enclose, rather than looking at enclosing the whole space.
Sure. So I suppose it's something that could be discussed before a home visit. Listen, I understand it's not an enclosed garden, but we would love to make this work. Let's work together and see if this is something that's possible. And
I suppose the ideal is to actually get to that place again where we have enough volunteers and rescue centres that we can handle these things on a more case-by-case basis. So when I started working with rescue back, 20-something years ago now, there was much fewer dogs looking for homes in rescue centres, and I suppose volunteers had more time to spend actually investigating each case. But unfortunately now it is a huge volume of dogs, and quite a few people trying to manage this. So one of those boxes that if you don't see it ticked, the fully enclosed back garden, unless you have the time and the manpower to actually to have that full conversation with that particular person, it can be quite hard when you just don't have the time or the manpower to do it. So I suppose that's why some of the homes that don't have the enclosed back garden get passed over a little bit. But what I would say is, if there is a dog that your heart is set on, or if a certain rescue centre, if they're nearby, volunteer with them and start to kind of, I suppose, do your part to do some of the groundwork, and kind of, talking to the volunteers and seeing, is there anything that you can do to maybe kind of I suppose whether it's walking the dogs or showing that you do have maybe that little bit more experience that you see people talking about online. But I suppose it's hard from the inside of the rescue centre to have the manpower to actually for them to go and do the investigating. So if somebody's really set in getting a rescue dog and it feels like they're being passed over, trying to kind of maybe even volunteering at a local rescue centre can help as well, whether it's just answering phones and then learning about maybe what you can do to help to make your home more suitable for taking in a new rescue dog.
And that is a brilliant idea, actually, and I'm sure it would dispel an awful lot of the myths that are out there. And I suppose, like, then what would be the next steps in preparing a home for the rescue usually, particularly to do with safety and comfort in the first couple of days, I suppose?
What I always encourage people to do, and I love getting the phone calls, and they do happen where people just will ring me up, and it's not a phone call that I will ever charge for. I am always delighted to get them. Is I'm getting a rescue dog in a couple of days. What can I do? Because there's so much preparation that can make things so much easier that you do actually before the dog arrives. So if you have gotten the information that the dog is crate trained and enjoys the crate in a safe space, which plenty of dogs coming out of foster homes will do that. You want to set up the crate before the dog gets there because it's a very noisy, clangy, scary thing. And if you can imagine a dog coming into a new home, everything is new. The smells are new, the sounds are new, the people are new. The things that are going on outside the window on that particular street are new. So we want to minimize the amount of new, potentially scary things that are going to come into that dog's life in the first couple of days, definitely week, and potentially couple of weeks going forwards. So simple things like setting up the crate, putting baby gates in place, because a big mistake, I suppose, that we sometimes make is taking this poor vulnerable creature into our homes and kind of just wanting to give them everything they never had. And sometimes that can be the run of the whole house. But we have to remember then that very often these dogs won't know where to pee or where to toilet. And it can happen that they run straight upstairs into the bedroom, onto the lovely carpet that's a bit like grass. And that's where they decide is the best place to pee, because again, they might have been holding it for a long period of time in the car and coming out of the rescue centre. And it can just be a bit of a release when they come in, when they get to run off into a corner. So deciding on the area of the house that the dog is going to kind of start their life in, whether that's, and I would always encourage people to say not the main thoroughfare. If you've a really, really busy kitchen and that leads into the sitting room and there's always family members coming and going and crossing over, think maybe the utility room, or if there's a separate area of the house that has ideally a tiled floor and not carpet, that is an area that the dog can get a little bit more quiet and they can actually watch you a little bit from afar, somewhere that they can observe their new life and the new beings in their life and the new sounds in their life without being literally stuck in the middle of it. And using baby gates to maybe cordon off certain areas of the house, like upstairs. Again, stairs can be a really scary thing to a new dog entering a home. Sometimes they can get up and then all of a sudden they're at the top of the stairs and they can't get back down. So then what do? Are you now having to actually engage with this rescue dog, pick it up, maybe scare the life out of it because it's way too much contact for those first couple of days. So just thinking about that and using baby gates, using physical barriers so that we're not having to engage too much of the dog and say, no, come back from there. Set the environment up so that the dog can succeed, that the area that they're cordoned into is the area they're allowed to be in, and an area that you have, I suppose, already decided that the chances are they probably will pee or poo in here for the first couple of days until it settles, until they settle in.
Yes, and I love 2 points that you've made. You even underlined it there at the end. Setting the dog up for success. It's what we hear on this format again and again and again. You have to set those dogs up for success, because otherwise you're going to both end up, or all of you are going to end up seeing a couple of failures along the way. And it might happen anyway, but setting them up for success at least, increases the chances an awful lot. And another thing that you kind of pointed out as well is that, even though your family, I'm sure, is going to be very, very excited about this positive event, the dog might need to go at a very different pace, and it can be kind of a little bit terrifying for them, probably entering a whole new space where they have to find the lay of the land a little bit. So I suppose then when we're moving past the first couple of days, I'm presuming training comes into the integration process as well.
It does and it doesn't. I wouldn't be a huge fan of thinking of training really in that first kind of couple of days or week at all. And sometimes I actually won't start to train. Now, obviously, I'm taking in dogs that would potentially have gone through more trauma than maybe a first time adopter or somebody that's just maybe on the second rescue dog. So for the first couple of days, when a dog comes into my home, I'm literally just treating them as the invisible dog, interacting with them verbally, but again, as little as possible. I'm just making sure that all of their needs are met, that they're fed, that they know where the water is, that again, they're in an environment where they're not stuck right in the middle of everything that's going on. They have a nice, safe, quiet area to retreat to with some bedding, and they know that that's there for them. And then really after that, I'm pretty much hands off for at least the first couple of days. And I'm just observing the dog, watching them, watching when they're maybe retreating. Is it when I am doing the washing up that we're seeing the dog is backing away into the corner? Okay, so maybe that's something that I now maybe need to close the door for, or I just need to be a little bit more conscious of the amount of noise I'm making initially until this dog gets a little bit more comfortable. Then I suppose ideally, what you want to start seeing is a dog that's starting to maybe come out from that little safe space and have a little look, and they might head away back in again. But doing things like dropping little bits of extra food in their food bowl and moving away again. So all you really want to do is just reassure the dog, I'm not coming into your space. I'm not going to push you on anything. I want you to just basically watch me and see what's going on and realize that this is very safe. Because we must remember that for some of these dogs, these hands haven't necessarily represented something that's been very positive in their past, or a human moving really quickly in one direction might have meant something else for them in the past. So picking up on all of these little bits. So I would always encourage people to start to put the emphasis on the observational and the behavioral element first, because actually when a dog is trying to take in all of these new elements of the environment, their brains actually can't take in new information to learn. So doing things like sit and trying to build in recall in the first couple of days, even the first couple of weeks, can actually be setting both you and the dog up for failure. And the dog sometimes just is wondering what all these hand signals are, why the human is kind of so close to them. And sometimes when we're lure training, we actually have to kind of almost lean over the dog, or that would be the tendency. And it can actually, rather than strengthening a relationship, it can actually sometimes damage it a little bit, and it can make the dog a little bit more wary of us. We start then thinking that maybe the dog isn't able to learn, but actually it can just be that the dog is taking in so much information every day that the part of their brain that actually is involved in learning just actually isn't able to focus on those tasks at the moment. So I would kick that ball right down 2-3 weeks. You're just really thinking about setting them up for success, and that can mean things like getting them used to the lead, clipping on the lead, finding ways that you're encouraging the dog to come to you so you can clip on the lead. For some dogs, you mightn't even be putting a lead on them for the first week. It might just be enough for them to take in the environment that they're in now, the back garden, ideally enclosed, and also just being around the house, because it's so much for them. I don't know if you've ever gone to, a totally just mind-blowing cultural change, like landing in Koh San Road in Thailand. For the first time ever being away. It's just, you're so tired at the end of your first day from just taking in all the new sights. And that's when you've chosen to go there and you're excited about it. Imagine if you just woke up in the morning and you were plonked in the middle of, anywhere completely culturally different to what you were expecting. It would just be an absolute overload. And there's no way that you could learn a new task in the middle of that for quite a while,
So taking things very slowly, building up the
Absolutely.
relationship based on trust, and
Yeah.
then work from there, which is, again, so much to do with other elements of dog training, regardless of whether it's rescue or not.
And it's nice actually being able to, when people hear this, sometimes they're like, oh God, so I don't have to teach them to sit, stay, come and roll over in the first week. Absolutely not. You know, just take the pressure off yourself, take the pressure off the dog, and just learn to be together for the first little while. And those little bits, start introducing the things that are going to be quite important in their life, like even seeing a lead around or a harness around, or this is where the food bowls go, or this is when and where we sleep. And I suppose the other thing that is vital is keep the friends and the neighbours away for as long as you possibly can, ideally at least a week anyway, because again, when we get a new rescue dog, especially if they're, you know, if it's an exciting kind of thing for the whole, if you've been talking to other people about it and things, they're dying to see them. But they have so much to take in with just your family and inside your four walls. Encourage people to, if they can, send them loads of photos, do you know, all of those little bits and pieces, but ideally trying to reduce the amount of people coming to the home. And if somebody does have to come, ideally maybe separate the dog and let them have their own little space where they can maybe watch from behind a baby gate, but trying to not encourage any interaction for the first good while, depending on the dog.
Absolutely, that's a brilliant tip. And like, I was wondering as well, what role does consistency play, and routine building? I'm sure this could be quite reassuring for a new rescue as well into the home, right?
Oh, very much. Absolutely. And sometimes, again, it's where, you know, our love takes us in the wrong direction. We're trying to give this dog new experiences if maybe we know that they've had quite a small life up until then, if they've maybe not been out of a shed too much or whatever. The human natural desire is to take them and you know, give them all these lovely new experiences. But it's just to try and keep it really exactly what you said, just routine, consistent, clear, rather than kind of all these new explosions